Hello, Dave here from Nerdarchy for Nerds by Nerds, and today I want to talk to you about a little segment we're going to call Dungeons and Dragons Monsters. Now, Dungeons and Dragons Monsters is really just about giving you some helpful tips for specific monsters, but maybe you don't play Dungeons and Dragons or Pathfinders, but some other game. You can still use this advice. If you can find a correlation between the monster we're talking about and monsters in the game world that you're using, the advice will still apply. So today I would like to talk to you guys about kobolds. They're the underappreciated, overworked, low-level monster of the Dungeons and Dragons Pathfinder worlds. So, they kind of get a bum rap. And, I feel like a lot of times they get misused by new game masters and dungeon masters. And even sometimes guys that have been doing this for a while. The thing about kobolds are, you have to understand they're cowards, right? At heart, they're cowards. And they're greedy and they're cunning. So with kobolds, it's not the kobolds you see that you need to worry about. It's the kobolds you don't see. Because they know they're cowards. They know they're weaker than other races. And they know they're smaller. So they're not going to charge the party all willy-nilly and try and defeat them in combat. It's not their way. It wouldn't work for them. So what do kobolds do instead? Well, they play to their strengths. Try and minimize their weaknesses. They're natural trappers and miners. They like to live underground. They're small. They can fit places most other humanoid races can't comfortably. They ally themselves with other monsters. They train dire weasels and dire rats as pets. So if you try and invade a kobold lair, it's not kobold guards that should be defending the lair, but more so tricks and traps and other monsters. Maybe there's a nest of sturges nearby, and the kobolds cunningly build their lair around it in order to make them unwitting guardians for the kobolds. Or, maybe they've trained another monster like an Adiug to stay in a particular area because that's where they dump all their refuse. And, and the kobolds know a way around it, but maybe your adventuring party does not, and they see it as the most direct path. And, in essence, it's another type of trap. It's another kind of guardian. Or, if I'm running a campaign, my players, before they ever see the kobolds, they're going to constantly be harried by skittering noises and shadows that they just can't quite make out. It's really start wearing at the party's nerves, before they even get to the lair. Maybe they get spotted by the sentries, and there's rustling in the brush, and flittering things in the trees that they never quite can make out. And then they start perhaps encountering traps. What would be more fun than having a player, they hear rustling in the brush and they go to investigate, and they think they see something, so they reach in or go to stab with their sword, and really they end up stabbing through like a bear trap or something that springs shut on their arm. Things like that. Pits with spikes. Maybe your kobolds have an overly large breed of dire rats that they use for mounts, so they can rush in and attack your player characters, then rush away. And as your player characters try and pursue, they get harried by slingers and archers. That's the kind of things that I would do with the kobolds. And then again, a kobold alchemist with acid and alchemist fire and thunderstones and tanglefoot bags and various things like that can really screw with the players, because they want to fight in an upright battle. Well, kobolds don't fight upright battles. They can't. They're small. They're weak. They're going to hit you from the shadows and flee. And they're going to keep harrying you and wearing you down. And they're going to try and cut your throat while you sleep. And, that's the other advantage of kobolds. They're numerous. Your players, there is only a handful of them, and they have to rest at some point. But your kobolds can work in shifts, and there can be tons of them. So you really could challenge a party up into, I would say 5th, 6th, 7th level, maybe even 8th level with kobolds, if you do it with a lot of planning, and if you treat kobolds the way they should be treated, as the little malicious little buggers that they are, that sneak around and attack from the shadows and then flee back into the shadows. And the other thing is, chasing a fleeing kobold could be very, very dangerous. They've got traps all over. They got hidey holes that only small creatures can fit in. Maybe your party has some small creatures that can fit in there, but do they really want to go in alone? A whole warren of kobolds is a lot of kobolds, not to mention, their pets. Maybe the kobolds are led by a sorcerer, that has foul magics that can rain down on the party as well. So, you could really base a large chunk of your campaign around one kobold warren, that the players are trying to deal with, that's threatening a town or a village or some farmsteads or, anything you want to do. These are just, some quick and dirty ideas that I came up with. Use terrain. Always, the kobolds are going to use the terrain to their advantage. If you're invading the kobold's lair, they have home ground advantage, meaning they know the layout, while your players do not. So they're going to use that to their advantage. A lot of problems I see with newer DMs is they want to treat monsters almost like mindless animals or mindless zombies that just go forth and fight to the death. Where no creature really does that. I can't say no, but most things want to preserve their life. So they're not going to fight to the death. They're going to try and run away. Granted, it's a little bit harder when you're a kobold and you really can't take a hit. But that's why they have to be more proactive. That's why sometimes they have to flee before they take that hit. It's something to consider when you're dealing with intelligent creatures. Maybe there are some things that will fight to the death, but that's kind of rare. Most things, their primary objective is to preserve their life first. And greed comes somewhere after that. So there's some things for you to keep in mind. Now, I remember, we had a kind of like a running joke in our group when we were playing 3.5 Dungeons and Dragons. And the joke was, just like Pathfinder, Dean, and 3.x, they all use the CR system. And, a CR1 challenge rating for kobolds was 6 kobolds. Well, funny enough, a CR1 challenge rating for cats were 4 cats. So really, all you ever really needed was 4 cats for every 6 kobolds. So if you flood the kobold warren with cats, you could eliminate the kobolds, which is kind of like a running joke in our campaign. So now, obviously, that wouldn't really work because cats are animals, and animals aren't as intelligent as the kobolds. And the cats would not probably do well with the kobold guardians that they have arranged around their warren, or the traps that they have laid in their lairs. But it was just a joke we had going back in the day when we used to play extensively 3.5. But now, but back to my point of kobolds being sneaky little bastards, right? So here's the thing, right? Maybe you're playing a game that's not Dungeons and Dragons, not Pathfinder, but there is probably adversaries that kind of mimic the kobold in the sense that they're not stand-up fighters, they're not brave, they're not courageous, maybe they're cowards, and they prefer treachery over an upfront fight. So all that stuff really applies. They're probably going to employ other guardians and guards and bodyguards, whatever means they have. Maybe they'll use subterfuge and traps instead of open conflict. All that stuff really applies. Really what this series is going to be about, it's about examining a particular monster and you know, seeing how they actually interact with the world around them. You know, like kobolds get bonuses to mining and trapping. Well, it's because they're good at it. So it only stands to reason that their warren is going to be designed around that. Their way of life is kind of designed around that. They're ambushers. You know, that's how they make a living. That's how they get by in life. They steal. So there's some things for you to keep in mind if you're running a campaign and you're using kobolds. Do not send kobolds wave after wave, willy-nilly after your PCs. No. Attack them from afar. Use traps. Use alchemist fire. Use thunderstones and tanglefoot bags. You know, lay out an area where there's cold traps between them and the kobold archers. You know, so they can't easily get to them. You know, have pit traps. You know, have secret cubbies that the kobolds can jump out of and attack them and then flee. You know, make sure that they're aware something is out there before they ever see what it is. They hear sounds and they see shadows. Get the players on end. Make them afraid. And so when you finally do reveal the big bad threat, it's actually itty-bitty kobolds. But remember, enough itty-bitty kobolds can be quite dangerous. So I hope this is helpful. Leave your thoughts below. Like, comment, subscribe. Let me know what monster you'd like me to talk about. Maybe I forgot to mention something that you thought was an important thing about kobolds. Drop it below so other people can see. But until then, stay nerdy, my friend.